question of whether femininity is a performance has been central to feminist philosophy and gender studies for decades. Building on the ideas of thinkers like Judith Butler, Michel Foucault, and Simone de Beauvoir, scholars have delved into the intricate relationships between gender, identity, and society. To understand the concept of femininity as a performance, it is important to first explore how gender is not biologically determined, but rather socially constructed and perpetuated through repeated actions, expectations, and cultural norms. This video seeks to unpack the idea that femininity, like masculinity, is not an inherent trait, but a role that individuals are taught to perform in order to gain social acceptance. Through examining historical, cultural, and contemporary examples, we will see how femininity has been constructed and how it continues to manifest in both subtle and overt ways in modern society. The theory that gender is a social construct challenges the traditional notion that one's gender identity is biologically determined. The French existentialist Simone de Beauvoir famously declared in The Second Sex, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." This radical statement underscored the idea that femininity is not an innate quality, but a role shaped by societal expectations. In the late 20th century, philosopher Judith Butler expanded on these ideas in her groundbreaking work Gender Trouble, proposing that gender is performative. According to Butler, gender is not something we are, but something we do. It is an ongoing series of actions and behaviors that conform to societal norms. This performance is not voluntary or optional. It is compelled by the structures of power and socialization. Femininity, in this framework, is not a biological fact, but a set of culturally sanctioned performances that an individual repeats to confirm their gender identity. Michel Foucault's work on power and sexuality also plays a significant role in understanding how femininity is constructed. In his History of Sexuality, Foucault argued that societal norms, institutions, and power dynamics shape the way individuals perceive themselves and their roles within society. These mechanisms dictate what is considered appropriate behavior for women, thus constructing the notion of femininity through disciplinary practices. Historically, femininity has been defined by a combination of modesty, submission, and domesticity. In pre-modern Western societies, gender roles were rigidly defined, and women's primary role was in the private sphere, within the home, caring for children and husbands. These roles were not only enforced by social expectations, but also by religious doctrines, legal frameworks, and patriarchal norms. Women's physical appearance, behavior, and even their voices were often regulated to ensure that they conformed to the societal ideals of femininity. A striking historical example of femininity as a performance can be seen in the Victorian era. In 19th century England, women were expected to embody qualities such as delicacy, piety, and moral purity. The ideal woman was passive, nurturing, and dedicated to the home. Women's clothing, for example, was a direct reflection of these ideals. Tight corsets, voluminous skirts, and veils were designed to restrict movement, emphasizing passivity and vulnerability. This performance of femininity was institutionalized in various ways, including marriage laws, education, and the legal system, which often denied women rights to property or autonomy. During the 20th century, the suffragist movement in the US and Europe began to challenge these rigid gender roles. However, even as women gained more rights, the performance of femininity adapted but did not disappear. In the 1950s, the rise of the ideal of the suburban housewife reinforced the belief that true femininity was fulfilled through motherhood and domesticity, as reflected in popular media like Leave It to Beaver. Even in the face of increasing female workforce participation, women were often expected to maintain their domestic roles. In the 21st century, the performance of femininity continues to be deeply embedded in societal expectations, although the roles women are expected to play have diversified. The rise of digital media and social media platforms has intensified the pressure for women to perform certain aspects of femininity, particularly those related to physical appearance and behavior. The beauty industry, for instance, continues to play a significant role in shaping femininity. Women are bombarded with images of ideal bodies and faces, reinforced through advertisements, social media influencers, and celebrity culture. The performance of femininity today often includes conforming to these beauty ideals, thinness, youth, and flawless skin, through makeup, fashion, and cosmetic procedures. Social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok have created spaces where women's performances are constantly scrutinized and validated through likes, comments, and followers. The act of posing for photographs and curating an idealized version of one's life becomes an integral part of performing femininity in contemporary society. One vivid example of the performance of femininity in popular culture is the rise of girl boss feminism in the 2010s. The term girl boss celebrated women's empowerment through entrepreneurship and success in the traditionally male-dominated business world. However, critics argued that this concept was a performance that still adhered to capitalist ideals, placing value on women's ability to perform femininity in a way that aligns with marketable traits, youth, attractiveness, and assertiveness within the boundaries of acceptability. At the same time, movements like #MeToo and body-positive activism have challenged these narrow definitions of femininity, advocating for a more inclusive and diverse representation of women. Women are now questioning the scripts they have been given and are redefining what it means to be feminine on their own terms. This shift is part of an ongoing effort to deconstruct traditional gender roles and move beyond the performance of femininity that limits individual expression. One prominent example of challenging the performance of femininity is the rise of women who publicly reject traditional beauty norms. Icons like Frida Kahlo and, more recently, singer and actress Billie Eilish have reshaped the notion of what it means to be feminine. Kahlo, with her unapologetic portrayal of unibrows and mustaches, embraced her physical appearance as a form of self-expression rather than conformity. Eilish, on the other hand, defied expectations by adopting baggy clothing that obscured her figure, challenging the assumption that femininity is tied to revealing one's body or adhering to traditional beauty standards. The feminist movement, especially with waves like #bodypositivity and #nomakeupselfie, has also pushed back against the conventional performance of femininity. Women who embrace natural beauty and self-expression, often without adhering to makeup or beauty standards, challenge the conventional narrative of femininity as a performance designed to attract male attention. In conclusion, femininity, like masculinity, is a social construct that has been shaped, refined, and perpetuated by cultural norms and societal expectations. It is performed through a series of actions, behaviors, and appearances that align with what society deems appropriate for women. From the Victorian era to the digital age, femininity has been a carefully curated performance, but one that is increasingly being questioned and reshaped by those who refuse to conform. The ongoing evolution of femininity reflects a broader cultural shift toward recognizing that gender is fluid and subjective, not a fixed binary. Women today are reclaiming their autonomy and defining femininity on their own terms, freeing themselves from the constraints of performance and embracing their multifaceted identities. Understanding femininity as a performance allows for a deeper appreciation of the complexities of gender identity and the potential for liberation from outdated and restrictive norms. To the women who choose to embody femininity in ways that align with traditional ideals, whether through fashion, beauty, or behavior, remember that your expression of femininity is valid. It's important to acknowledge that femininity, in any form, can be empowering when it is a conscious choice made for yourself, not because of societal pressure. The ways you navigate the world as a woman, whether through embracing softness, grace, or any other characteristic, can be powerful expressions of your identity. You are free to enjoy and celebrate your femininity on your own terms, without apologizing for it, or feeling the need to justify your choices. To the women who choose to reject or redefine traditional expressions of femininity, whether through rejecting makeup, embracing androgynous styles, or refusing to conform to expected gender roles, your choices are equally valuable. The courage to challenge conventional standards and craft your own identity is an act of resistance, one that helps to break down the very constructs that seek to limit women's potential. The rejection of traditional femininity is not a rejection of womanhood, but a reaffirmation of your right to define yourself beyond societal labels. At the end of the day, femininity is not a singular, monolithic experience, Whether you lean into traditional expressions or opt for something that feels more authentic to your sense of self, your worth as a woman does not depend on how you choose to perform your gender. Embrace the complexity, diversity, and fluidity of what it means to be a woman, and know that every expression, be it traditionally feminine or not, is part of the rich tapestry that makes you uniquely you.